Now, group, I want to talk to you about castles today. And I'm hung up on castles. I think castles are really groovy. And I don't know, castles just kind of, there's something about them that's so kind of dumb and yet fun at the same time. Now look, when people make inventions and improvements, they improve things very slowly. And what you do is you start with what you already know and you move by gradual stages to something which you hope is going to be better. All right, now, in the case of castles, what these German barbaric types that survived the Roman Empire knew about is that they knew about the kind of military fortifications which the Romans had built in their territory, like every night when they marched into foreign territory. And I told you about that. What the Romans would always do is you would dig a ditch, pile the dirt up on the inside of the perimeter, like so, and that would be what you would have for kind of a nighttime defense. Doesn't work very long, but that's what the Romans used to do. Now, to this defensive system, they'd dig a ditch all the way around something, medieval people would do. They added a stone tower in the center, like so, very narrow tower, made of stone, very thick walls, maybe 15 feet thick, very thick, because the mortar is so lousy that you know it won't stay up any other way. They have very thick walls. And very heavy doors on it to fortify against any enemies, and that's what you've got. And that's what they tried to get away with when the Vikings came. Okay, Vikings come out of their ships yelling and shrieking. The perimeter, the ditch, would go in 5 minutes. But 5 minutes was all the time the nobles needed to beat off the peasantry so that the nobles could get into the stone tower, get the doors shut. Okay? Now, then of course the Vikings are busy, carrying off the peasants and the chickens and the sheep and the women and whatever's loose there back to the longboats. And then the knights are holed up in the tower, and the barbarians can't dig them out. Oh well, the Vikings used to play little games with the tower. And a couple of weeks to fiddle around. Get some firewood and stack it up on both sides of the tower, like so. Light it on fire. Pretty soon, even a 15-foot thick wall is going to get to you on the inside. They used to kind of roast the nobles and stuff. And there was a lot of fun, those early battles. But most of the fun was had with the Vikings, who were playing these kind of games. All right, now, system changed. System changed. The Vikings got stopped by these little local militia units that I told you about. And then you've got time to do something better. It's no good to build a complicated castle if one wall isn't built when the enemy shows up. You've got to do something small to start with. Then you got peace, you build big castles. What they did is they simply expanded the tower, made it much bigger with living quarters and food and water and stables and everything on the inside of it into what you would call a square-walled castle. Okay? Here's a bird's eye view of that, one of the better things I draw. And then, of course, the ditch is expanded too. It's all the way around the castle on the outside. The ditch is now called the moat. The moat, it is either dry, or if you've got a natural spring, you can make it a wet-type moat around the outside edge. And you've got a drawbridge, which you can let down over the moat. And you like, put it down when friends are coming, and if you got any sense at all, you raise it up when the enemy comes. All right? I worry about these medieval people. So how do you attack that? The enemy rides down, draw up the drawbridge, and there you are, holed up in your castle. First thing the enemy always did was to fill in the moat by dumping junk in it. Takes a couple of days. Just make a big bridge, just dump rocks or anything. Fill it up. Say, well, good grief, if you can fill it up in 2 days, what's the use of having it? Gives you 2 days. 2 days, a lot of time. Spend on the inside sharpening all of your equipment and getting all the arrows where you can find them. And the ladies of the castle are busy boiling up their oil and stuff, getting ready for the siege. All right, now, got the moat filled in. How do you attack the wall? You may, if you want, attack it directly with long scaling ladders, like fire department type ladders. They always do that in Hollywood movies. Nobody ever did that in the Middle Ages because it was really stupid to do that. And, they're not very sharp, but they aren't that really stupid either. And flop those big ladders against the wall. And guys up on top of the wall are yawning. And, where are they now, Jake? Oh, they're about, floor and a half up. Says, well, let's give them another floor. And, it's a long climb. We'll get them down faster. And you got long forked poles on top. A little fork on the end. Just put a little fork on the top rung of the ladder and just kind of push it away from the wall. And you're going, woo, rattle, clank in your armor. Oh, bad news, landing armor. Land on a metal cloth there is always disgusting. And nobody did that. In the final stages, if the castle's got disease and everybody's lying in bed on the inside, you can do your scaling ladders, but you don't do it until then. All right. Got to attack the wall some way. We will attack the wall with catapults. A catapult is a big rock-throwing machine. Oh, wow, I wish I could tell you about Roman catapults. I am going to tell you about Roman catapults. They were neat. The Romans, you have to have some kind of power to drive the catapult to make the rocks fly. And the Romans needed rubber bands is what they needed, but rubber wasn't invented yet. That may have been the reason why the Roman Empire fell. The rubber bands had not been invented. So what they have to do is something else than that. What they did is they got ropes made out of hair. It's a combination of animal hair and human hair. Hair is very stretchy. It's kind of thin, so you don't notice it, but it has a lot of snapback to it. Human hair does. It really does. And you make a rope out of that, and you stretch the ropes in such a way that they catch the end of a pole between a couple of ropes, and you wind them up like a rubber band on an airplane with big cranks and windlasses and through ratchets and stuff. And you've got this big pole tortured here between these two ropes, and at the other end is tied down. And the other end has a little scoop on it. You put a rock in there, and you pull the pin, and the rubber bands goes chung, and like bust the thing up, and the rock goes throwing out, click against the castle wall. Great. Medieval people have forgotten how to do that. So I told you that for nothing. Medieval people are building something which they call a counterweighted catapult. It's huge. It's a big framework here, like so, with a pivot point on the top, and you've got an entire tree trunk suspended on that pivot. Okay? And on the top of the tree trunk, you've got a scoop for the rock, and on the bottom, you have this huge bag full of junk, just old rocks and rusty armor, anything that's heavy. Okay? And you catch a peasant. No, nobles don't do any work except kill people. Catch a peasant. He shinnies up the pole and ties a rope onto the top of it, and you get other people in there, haul it down into cocked position, like so. Scoop down there. Big box of junk up in the air. And you kind of torture it around, aim it. Everybody stands back, and you put a big rock, so big, in the scoop. Cut the rope. Set it loose, and the big box of junk just comes roaring down, like so, and busts into a big backstop there. Wonk! And this action throws the stone in a big high arc through the air, and it goes click against the castle wall. It's fire one. And you catch another peasant, climbs up the pole with his rope and the whole bit. You know, a good catapult crew could get off 4 or 5 shots a day with this catapult. You know, it's always breaking apart and falling down and stuff. All right. Get your catapults, and you build 5 or 6 of them, and you set them right there against that castle and begin throwing rocks against the corner of the castle. Corners are weak spots. You can knock the corner out. You know how strong eggs are? Someone once told me that I couldn't take an egg because it was, you know, self-supporting curve structure in my hand and crush the egg even though I tried. Don't do that over a rug, people. That's kind of depressing. You know, I managed to crush the egg. I had a ring on, I think, and it started to shell. Once it starts to break, man, there's, you know, you're squeezing on it, it goes crack, and you have egg down to the elbow before you know what's hit you. And so don't do that. But eggs are very strong. A biologist told me that if chickens laid square eggs, the corners would have gotten broken off so frequently they wouldn't have made it on down in the modern world. And I don't know. I think probably the Chickens Union would have forbidden to lay square eggs, maybe. But that's neither here nor there. Throw those rocks at the corner. Pretty soon, the corner will come out of the castle, and you can send your troops in, capture the castle. Okay? Castle architects got onto that. Built round castles. One of the neat things about a round castle is it doesn't have any corners. You with me? Okay. Hit that round castle, and it just falls back on itself. It's self-supporting. Very strong. Very strong. Then, too, late in the Middle Ages, castle architects began to build towers out from the side, big round curves out. So if you got in this position here, they fired down on you from the wall and from both towers behind you. It's a very bad crossfire like that. And they also used to make towers that outflanked the walls like so. So if you made it up on top of the wall, you were still shot down upon from the towers on both sides. But that happened later in the Middle Ages. Really wicked. All right. Catapults don't work against round walls. Says, well, plan A. Back to the old drawing board. What do we do now? All right. Here's the wall. So, cross-section. The safest place that you can be, except, of course, 500 miles away from the war, is standing right up next to the castle wall. Right there. What anybody would want to do up there next to the wall, I'll explain in a minute. But that's the safest place to be in a battle. Because the enemy must stand up on top of his own wall to throw something nasty down on your head, like boiling oil or a rock or whatever comes to mind. All right? He's exposed to arrow fire from your troops if he gets up there on the wall. So being right up against the wall is really neat. Castle architects got onto that right away. They built a little flanking thing, the little tower, little thing that went out over the wall. Made out of wood, and it's got like a little platform which protects you from arrow fire. It's got holes all down the walkway here, so you can get out there being perfectly safe and kind of have a longer time to sight in on the head of your enemy against the wall. Splat. The attackers got onto that. Used to build little platforms on wheels. They would roll them up to protect their guys. That's very cool. Guys used to shoot fire arrows down on it, set it on fire. So they used to pile sand up on top of it, put out the fire arrows. Boom, 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 back and forth. For every offense, there's a defense kind of thing. All right. Now, what are these people doing up against the wall in the first place? Well, they're working on the wall itself using something which used to be called a pick, sometimes called a mouse. It's a gigantic walnut pick is what it is, and they're like picking out the mortar from the rocks. And you pick out the mortar, and you take the rocks out, and gradually you just pull down the wall, undermine it from the bottom like that. Now, if you keep it that long enough, taking rocks out from underneath the wall on the bottom, the wall will come collapsing down right on your head. What you want to do is have enough sense to, take a break about that time. Time for a new crew. And you go out and rest a while. Or you can, if you're impatient, you can begin whamming the wall with a battering ram. What you do is you drive an iron pinion between two rocks, which fastens it in the wall, and you suspend a chain down from that, and you put a log on the chain with a bronze head on the log, and a bunch of little leather straps nailed onto the log on both sides. And the log is kind of bounced on the center on the chain, and 25 guys get on each side. They lift up the little handholds, and you kind of bounce it on the chain, and you say, heave, and you swing it back, wham, into the bottom of the wall. And the mortar dust flies all everywhere. These walls are built they're very thick, but they're very poorly constructed. All right? Keep that up long enough, and you will wham down the wall. Now, castle architects had a way of stopping that. Castle architects had built into their castles little doorways all along the perimeter. They have solid iron. They're very strong, and there's no way to get in them at all. This is not the main doorway. Little tiny doorways called sally ports all along the exterior of the wall. And what you would do is you would find these clowns whamming your wall with their battering ram between two of your sally ports. And you would collect your troops on the inside of the castle in front of the two doors on opposite sides of the battering ram. And you would draw your weapons and say, open. Open the doors and go roaring out at those people. They're all standing going, wham, 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 and then duck back in the castle again. Just new battering ram crew. Any volunteers? Okay. Plan F goes as follows. Bring in the silver mine crew and commence digging your tunnel. Shoring up the sides of the tunnel with timbers all the way along. Now, the object of the tunnel is to come up right underneath the castle wall. Now, it's a little hard to estimate how far the castle wall is away. You can't have a guy with a piece of string out there on top of the surface. It gives away your tunnel. Let's see. If you make a mistake and dig your tunnel long, the first guy who sticks his head up on the inside of the castle courtyard is in really serious trouble. Come up right underneath the wall. And you begin undermining the wall both directions, supporting the wall on your timbers now, instead of on its supports. People up on top of the wall don't notice any difference. It's on your timbers. German Baron on top of the wall. I made him up. Sir Smellmore Oder. Sir Smellmore is up on top here of the wall, walking back and forth. Pretty soon, the whole wall is resting, a big piece of wall is resting on your timbers, special timbers, soaked with pitch and tar. Catch on fire real easily that way. Then you fire up the timbers and go back to your tunnel, and you mass your troops back behind your side of the lines, but wait for that wall to come down. Sir Smellmore is up there with his sword shouting. He says, "Did you hear any noise?" Hanging onto his sword. Crash. Capture it. Never worked. Never worked. You can hear the tunnels coming, particularly at night, but you can hear them in the daytime too, I guess. Put a shield on the ground, listen to it. like listening for elephants on a railroad track. I think I hear a tunnel coming. He says, aha. Dig a counter tunnel. Shoring it up with timbers. You dig your tunnel right to about there. Estimate it all the way. And then everybody gets out of your tunnel and you dump the Castle waterworks system in, fill it up with water. And the guys are down their knees, digging away, chop, whack, says, gee, I sure think it's getting easier to dig, blub, blub, blub. A bad scene. You can try to use a tower. Out here in the woods, you build yourself a wooden tower on huge wheels. So, put men up on the top of the tower. You've got a little thing here to protect them from arrow fire on a hinge. It's like the front end of an old landing vessel in World War II. Idea is to shove that up against the wall and stream across the top and seize the wall. There are some weaknesses of that. They kept falling over all the time, They're very, very, very badly built. And the enemy can see it coming for several days because it's so slow. So what the enemy does is he builds a counter tower on the inside where it's going to hit the wall, and he puts all of his archers standing up there, massed up there, and then you shove your tower against the wall. And if they haven't set it on fire by this time with some means or other, and they always did, get your tower up there, and you let down the little bar, and men go running out, and it's like 5 feet away from you and the archers. They're just aiming right at you. You're like a reverse porcupine. Very bad, very bad. Never works at all. Okay? You can starve them out, maybe, if you don't starve first. In the Middle Ages, it was touch and go because the medieval armies were so kind of undersupplied that you might starve too. Put a cordon around the castle and starve them out. And you can play fun games on the people in the castle. You can get a very dead horse, dead about, 2 or 3 weeks. And you get a piece of dead horse that's very ripe now, and you put it on your catapult and loft it over the wall. Like, ho, ho, eat that. Hope it falls in the well and pollutes the water. Now, if you get desperate on the inside of the castle, you go for help. You send out a messenger at night. He's like the creepy crawl through the enemy's lines and get away and promise somebody something and bring help. They always caught those messengers. Want to be messenger for a day? That's all the time you've got. And he used to play fun games with the messengers, too. So tie them up, put them in the catapult, heave them up over the water. Caught you a messenger, ho, ho, ho. Almost no castles ever fell in the Middle Ages. Almost no castles ever fell. They're too tough for the attackers. If you've got a castle, you're safe. You're safe. Sometimes they fell by treason. You hire a guy to open up the drawbridge in the middle of the night, but almost no other reasons. Now look, people, it's the medieval knight that's holding up the world here. He's a power unto himself, and he will knock merchants on the head on the highway and do anything he wants. And before we can get on to nations and big power blocks and law and order and the rest, but we've got to knock those people on the head. The question is, how are you going to do it? They're in their castles. You've got to find a way of destroying the castle walls. And catapults aren't going to make it against round castles. Can it be done? Yes, it can, but not just yet. First of all, we have to import gunpowder from China and make big iron tubes to blow cannonballs at the wall. Boom! And then the knight has had it. You dig him out like a rat out of his hole. Okay? And I'm for that. We got to get rid of those people. But we'll have to do it later. Any questions? Okay? That's it.